Good morning, everybody. John Spielkel here for GAI Insights with Luda Kopkina and Adam Rappaport and Ankash Anda about the Gen AI news. We're here to put time in your day, thoughts in your head. We've spent the week still collecting information. Ankash has done a great job, and what we're doing here today is to give you what we think of the top 5 articles from the past 6 days or so, and then we're staying back in the news cycle with the exception of New Year's, where we are going to take the day off. But other than that, we are back here rating the news and hoping to give you insight and efficiency in your day. All right, Akash, we can have the first article, please. Hey, Paul.
Yes, John. Yeah. So the first one that we have for today comes from DeepSeek, and they have introduced DeepSeek V3, which is a reasoning model.
All right, DeepSeek V3 from our Chinese brethren, spending very little money to train this thing, as I understand it. Adam, what do you think here?
I thought this was significant. I rated it as important. So DeepSeek is leading the way right now in terms of open source models, and it's pretty phenomenal what they've done. In terms of, it's a mixture of experts, but a big one. And it's Ankash, if you can scroll down. It's not on the screen anymore, but there's on the article there's a chart which shows across the left-hand side. It's the score on the MMLU Redux Zero Eval score. So it's basically the score on one of the benchmarks. No, not that one. The graph down on, I think it's 2 posts down. You'll see the next graph that comes up. Yeah, the left one there.
That one.
Yeah, the left one there. So on the left axis is the benchmark score, and you see DeepSeek there is right up, allegedly exceeding Claude 3.5 Sonnet and GPT-4o. But then along the bottom axis is the input price per million of tokens. So not only was it trained for a lot less money, but it's, I mean, I'm seeing posts from people who are like, I ran this thing full bore for 24 hours straight and it cost me $6 or something. So the cost per compute for a model that's getting GPT-4o or Claude 3.5 Sonnet performance is pretty extraordinary, and it's worth paying attention to.
Yeah, so interesting. What do you think here, Luda?
Yeah, I agree with Adam. Very worth paying attention to. And it's open source, so you can download, run on your own GPUs. It's not a problem with security, I don't think. So it is a model to keep in your back pocket, I think.
Yeah, what do you think here, Paul?
Yeah, definitely important. I think it's really important for the leaders to understand we are continually surprised by the price performance breakthroughs of these models. I mean, 6 months ago, this would have been inconceivable. So, I think they got to continue to think through an IT architecture that's flexible in which models they use, and understand 6 months from now, we'll probably be amazed at something else. So important.
Right. Yes, and I think, John, what would happen, it's essentially, it's commodity. It is now a commodity. So what will happen is, as inference is the commodity, it will go into the agentic systems, into the tools that would create more value for the enterprise. So this is where it's going to go.
Yeah. And because it's moving towards the commodity, Luda, that's why I think the leader needs to look at the other elements of the car, if you will. This is just a motor. What are all the other features and security and testing that's available in that enterprise intelligence application?
Yeah, so interesting. You may be familiar with what they call the Roger Bannister effect, which is when Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile, then all kinds of people broke it after and kept going. And I think for me, November 2022 with ChatGPT 3.5 was the Roger Bannister moment for this part and for generative AI, right? People could see like what was possible. And since then, we've just had amazing, innovation. I don't know, would we make the case for essential? I mean, this is a massive, it's downloadable, it's way cheaper, it's great performance. I don't know. What do you think?
You recommend that someone use this though?
Yeah, I still
Would you recommend that a U.S. company, Fortune 500 company, would actually use this model behind the firewall?
A TikTok effect, are you saying? We have a TikTok situation here? Yeah. No, I wouldn't, but should they be aware of it? I don't know.
Aware, that's why it's important, John, not essential.
I'm not feeling the power yet this morning, so we're going important. Next.
The next one that we have comes from semi-analysis, and it talks about NVIDIA's Christmas present, their GB300 and B300 reasoning inference.
Yeah, boy, the guys at NVIDIA, they just keep on coming, with and these folks who wrote this actually, is it semi-analysis, lovely blog that you can get. It's about $500 a year to subscribe, but they do some very nice detailed work on the nature of cost of data centers and inference and so forth. So, what do you think here, Paul?
Yeah, I think this is a continuing, faster, better, cheaper. I had this as optional, just because I just don't see a lot of companies yet using these things, but it's definitely impressive.
Well, I would argue with you, Paul, and put it at least important, if not essential, because what is happening, they had problems with delivering on the volumes of the prior chips. And now what they announced that the Microsofts of the world are going for these chips that would have a massive impact on the inference costs. And so it is something we don't see. It's in the background, but I think it will have a massive impact on the inference costs further than this model that we just discussed. So I would go at least important, if not essential.
Where are you on this, Adam? And Luda, if you could get a little close to your mic, you're just a little distant.
Okay.
I felt it was important because in some ways there was this balance of power with these new O1 and O3 models, and how much more we can do in terms of continuing to accelerate the growth, not through the training, but through the inference. And these reasoning models were going to start outpacing the compute effectively, or the GPU capacity. So beyond just the increase in the overall capability, specifically for those reasoning tasks, that NVIDIA has already sort of come back with their answer to how they're going to address that is important.
Right, and this is like, if you scroll down, Ankash, to the built for reasoning model inference, they put these chips together with what needs to happen for the inference, and so that will have further effect. So it's important, I think.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I would give it an important, maybe essential. It just reminds me of the early days of the current computer architectures. I mean, if you go and you look at what the ratio of compute to memory needs to be, and really has a lot to do with the nature of the task, and then how much of it is sitting in pre-processed activities like RAG. It's a real flow balance thing, and as this chart shows, I mean, these guys are really trying to move to where the new demand's going to be. So definitely gonna give this one an important. Next.
The next one that we have is from Secana AI, and they are automating the search for artificial life with foundation models.
Yeah, what I know about biology is that I have some. That's about it. But as I was looking at this, I was trying to understand. First of all, it's just visually, it's just a beautiful thing to look at. If you have any curiosity visually about like how you can explore these new kinds of, as they call them, supervised targets, and then open-endedness, exploration, then imitation, and looking for patterns. I mean, just as a set of approaches, and this notion of driving toward artificial life. The thing I found confusing about this, and maybe you guys can help me, is I don't understand the relationship between visual models and then biological reality. So these alternatives, as I understand it, they're inductively looking at patterns of life, and then they're creating an exploration space and then evaluating them, from different points of view. But they're using visual generation models to create these alternatives. And I poked around a bit to try to understand what is the relationship between the visual representations and then the biological reality, i.e., can I go build some of these things or not? And in the time I had to review this, I didn't have a satisfactory answer. So I was going to give it an important, at least just because it's such an interesting set of ideas. But maybe somebody can help me here about, because if you can actually go build this stuff, then this is essential.
Right. The way I can't quite answer your question, but it is simulation, right? So the objective is to create a new system and simulate it per parameters, like targeted parameters. That's what I found very interesting in this, that you essentially say, well, I'd like novelty. I'm not sure what novelty is really, but I can define it for you in these ways and simulate it for me, how it will behave and what patterns I will see. And that's why you can visually assess whether it's worth for you to take a closer look, I think. I don't know. What do you think, Adam, Paul?
Yeah, no, I certainly couldn't answer your question, John. Other than I think to the extent to which the vision systems, right? I mean, biology, at least to an extent, is going to be reflected in the physical, right? So you can use the visual. I mean, I was doing some early algorithmic stuff with AI with vision systems 30 years ago to like count cells and stuff like that, right? So it might be sort of an extension of that into the predictive space.
Yes.
The only other thought I had was in terms of like the importance of novelty as we talk about getting more training data, right? And sort of the implications of this in terms of using this new approach to find novel simulations. But I was probably between optional and important. It's very interesting stuff. It's visually appealing, but I'm not sure how much it's going to really reach our audience or even for me for that matter.
Yeah, sorry.
I gave it importance because for material spaces, this is critical, right? If you can envision new innovative spaces where we have not been, and there are systems already doing that, right? But this is a different level because you're targeting it, and I don't know. That's what the attraction was for me.
Paul?
Oh, I think for the general AI leader, this is highly optional. They have a board meeting coming up in March. They need to defend their $3 to $8 million Gen AI budget and their goals. And unless they're in a really niche thing like Luda is, they shouldn't spend a minute on this, in my view. So optional.
That is true.
Interesting. I was just listening to Jensen Huang talking about how Tesla is the leader in autonomous driving because now they can use video to train the models. And I think this thing I talked about before, the law of computability, the level of knowledge of the phenomenon of interest times digitization equals computability. I think that the physics of cars, I think, is highly computable. The biology of just about anything is much less computable, and then we have the space of the less knowledge we have of the physics, and then the space between visualization and biological activity. So anyway, because of that,
why would biology be less computable when we're saying
our understanding of it's trivial? You talk to an R&D scientist at some place like Merck, and you say, how much do we understand the human body? They'll say maybe 1%.
Oh, okay. I thought you were making the argument that it's less mechanistic and not therefore visual like the cars are.
Oh, well, it may or may not be less mechanistic, but our relative understanding of how the mechanisms work compared to how a car crashes or drives or the tire sits on the road is vast. I mean, we know a lot about the car. We know very little about human biology or biology in general. And anyway, so sorry, Luda, they've convinced me it's optional. Optional it is. Next, but beautiful. Can we have an optional but beautiful category? Next time, guys.
So the next one comes from Anthropic, and it talks about building effective agents.
Yeah, I gave it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, it was assigned to me. Sorry. I gave it important, and I think I gave it an essential. In going forward into 25, right? Everybody says agentic systems is it. So here's an article from Anthropic going over the best practices that they've seen enterprises implement in creating agents. And they start with what is an agent, and they divide it into into workflows and autonomous agents that actually do things for you where you don't have a particular path. You want the result, but you don't know which path it can take to get to that result. So really unpredictable type of things. Then they go through the very simple sort of cookbook and ideas for the workflows. So like, here's the frameworks, but they suggest don't use the frameworks yet. Do the simple calls to LLMs, scroll down, Ankash. So they go through the building blocks and say, first, you need to augment the LLM with memory and the like. This is a system, a core block that you would need to create. And then they suggest how do you work with prompts and the like. So it's very clear and not very long article detailing the various best practices, how you can create effective agents. So I feel that every leader should read this, very accessible, and it's a very useful article. So essential.
All right, essential, the case for essential from Luna. What do you think, Adam?
I kind of support essential. I think it's between important and essential. It's if someone's trying to get up to speed on agents and what they can do with them, it's probably a little more than they need to know, but it's most that they would need to bring into their organization to share with all the people who need to know how to do all these things. So for that reason, and the sort of the reusability, the depth of it, and it is very accessible, I could definitely support that. I was probably between important and essential.
Paul, where are you on this?
Oh, absolutely essential. I mean, I think one of the challenges AI leader has is staying up to speed, and this tsunami of energy around agents coming from the Valley, investment community, every single vendor, every board member, anybody in the organization is through the roof. And I think each AI leader really needs to get a working understanding of their definition of agents. And I like this one because it's explainable, it's in workflow. And, I think they need to understand how to start segmenting, subject matter in the loop, agents as subroutines, agents in workflows. So I had this is something that I think they should review before their March board meeting.
All right. Yeah, I'm reminded that I was going to say something, but then I'm reminded of an old joke in academia where somebody was frustrated that the meeting kept going on, and one of the faculty members turns to the other one and says, "Everything's been said," and the other faculty member says, "Yes, but not everyone has said it." So there you go. I'm not going to pile on here. I'm going to say essential.
The next one that we have comes from OpenAI, and it is about the announcement of the O3 family of models.
Man, I'll tell you, reading this thing, I was, channeling Gary Marcus. It's like, anyway, let's see who is up on this one. We have.
That's me.
Yeah, what do you say?
So this is what OpenAI dropped on their final day of the 12 days of Shipmas.
Yes.
This was the big day 12 announcement.
Yes.
They skipped O2 for anyone who's wondering why they went from O1 to O3 due to the name of a company in Europe.
Yes.
So they've come right to the O3 model, which is the successor to the O1. And mostly what the big deal here is, and there's the graph there of it, is that this thing is performing incredibly well on what's called the ARC AGI test. And this is really a test of a model's ability to acquire new skills that are outside of the data it was trained on. And that's part of how they're defining AGI, is that it's not just how can it do with the things you asked it to, but what can it do when it's encountering new situations, and how does it perform outside of that? So just to give some sort of by perspective, the previous models on this test were scoring in the 25 and 30% range, right? And this thing on its lowest tuning got a 76%, which is extraordinary. And on the high end, it was almost 90%. It was, I think, 88%. So this is nearing a perfect score, or a very, very good score on this ARC AGI test, which then brings up quite a bit of controversy over the last week, 10 days around what is AGI? Have we achieved AGI? There's also significant contractual significance of OpenAI achieving AGI in terms of having to pay profits to Microsoft from the agreement they have with them. So this actually blows up into a pretty big news story. The thing to note is, one, that it's not available yet, and to get that kind of compute out of it, you're spending literally thousands of dollars to answer a single question, right? So the question I think that people should be asking themselves, this is probably important, not essential, given that it also isn't available yet, is to start asking yourself, what would you even do with a model if you could spend $2,000 and ask it anything? Right? What would you even ask it? But I think it ties into what we were just talking about previously in terms of agents and the idea of something that you don't necessarily tell it how to complete the task, you just tell it the outcome it wants. And so this model does dovetail very nicely into those agentic systems, and just giving something a job and letting it figure out how it's going to complete that, it's all falling right into place.
Yeah, Blackface here is commenting the notion of that our LLMs the fastest depreciating assets in the world, given the DeepSeek announcement earlier in a first article, and I think you make a case for that. I certainly wouldn't put money into OpenAI if I were being asked to. That's me. Yeah, I would put this important at the most, maybe optional. What do you say? Optional, important, definitely not essential. Important.
I would still put it as important because they have an interesting innovation behind this model. They are pushing on the thinking ability versus the speed of the V3, right? So they will at some point come together, but it is important to know that OpenAI is one of the leaders here.
And Luda, I think on the speed thing, even if it's slower but smarter, going back to Adam's earlier thing, I think one of the things AI leaders need to think about is task automation, where I know the output and I want a task, versus discovery. Take this robot and just tell them, find me any interesting correlations between purchase price and these customer types or something in the market, and let that brain go over there. And I think, that may be another way to start thinking about broadening the use case more than just task automation within the enterprise.
Right.
All right, so we're going for important.
Yes.
Next, Ankash.
The next one that we have comes from LangChain, and it's their State of AI 2024 report.
Yeah, Paul, you're up on this. Next, Paul.
Oh, yeah, I mean, LangChain's a credible vendor. They're right in the middle thick of things. They like we saw early there with Anthropic Claude, have been writing some thoughtful education pieces to really help their sales cycle in this industry, and I think this falls into it. We've seen other LangChain articles in the past here. I had this as optional. I do think it is a good overview of the year. There's a number of them out there, but I had it optional for the AI leader. And for the AI leader who's already been paying attention, they should know all this stuff.
Interesting. I was going to say essential because they may know like a little bit, but these guys actually have data in terms of, like for example, I did not know that Llama was the second largest downloaded, Olama rather, second most downloaded and used environment, and also how strong Grok is. Grok's above Gemini. I mean, that's pretty.
Yeah, but where's Llama on this chart?
Don't know. I think it sits within Olama, Bedrock, Vertex, right? Hugging Face. I think it fits within those environments as it gets downloaded in those.
So hang on here. So making sure, Adam, this is a market share coming from a vendor that has their market share pretty high.
No, it is actually their data that you have to. So people using the various models, and they're just reporting what they're seeing.
That's my understanding, and Olama doesn't have its own model, right? But you can use lots of models within Olama.
Yeah, the list is the LLM providers, right? And an open source model isn't actually being provided by anyone. Of course, certainly Hugging Face and Vertex and Bedrock as well are benefiting quite a bit from Llama being out there, but it's a model, it's not a provider, so it sort of falls under the radar here. It's a great point.
Yeah, but actually, what I found very interesting is things kind of that we don't track very well, that vector databases, for example, or the top vector stores, and what is being used, what
Sure.
these things, active organizations and traces and the calls. So performance and optimization, number of steps per trace, these type of
Yes.
things are actually important.
Akash, just scroll down through some of those charts that
I
Lou was
think
just
the
talking about.
robust discussion here is highlighting how this is essential. It's impressing our analyst.
Yeah, I'm there for essential. I'm feeling the power now. I'm out of my crystal.
It's
Essential.
the last
Going
December
essential.
surge, the shock power.
All right. Next, Akash, I think our last one's come up.
Okay, the next one that we have comes from 11 Labs, and they're talking about their new offering called Flash.
Yeah. Impressive performance here. What do you think, Luda?
Yeah, I put it as important for the reason that this is really catching up to human-like speech and in 32 languages with almost no latency. And I think 11 Labs is probably the leader in the conversational AI environment. So you can build very quickly an application for customer service and the like in the environment. And in whatever bot, whatever voice, whatever emotional you want to attach to the voice. So, but now it's a human-like speed that I think it's very notable, and leaders should know about it. Important.
All right. We're coming up toward the end. I was going to go for important. Any objections? I want to give it to Paul a little time. We have a learning lab coming up tonight. So, Akash, please put that down as important. We'll review in a second. Paul.
No learning lab tonight. This is
No learning lab. No learning happening. Oh, my
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. It's a happy New Year.
New
Go
Year.
get some rest. We're gonna have a tsunami of activity next year.
All right.
Needs a rest this week.
All right. So Akash's got the tote board here. And don't start ragging about the fact that we're grade inflation. Remember, this is a full, week.
This is the highlights of a full week of news.
That's
yeah.
right. So building effective agents as essential. State of the AI report essential. We have 4 importance, 1 optional. Although beautiful, we almost got that optional to important there. All right, Akash. So we have a lot going on here.
And
Paul?
I have one announcement before we go here. So January 9th at noon Eastern, we have a webinar on secure employee chatbots, trade-offs between using Microsoft Copilot and OpenAI ChatGPT Enterprise. Many companies now are realizing they do need to start addressing the shadow IT. Just as my colleague John said, it's no longer an excuse for AI, for executives not to know something intelligent about AI. I think it'll be no longer excuse for a vast majority of companies to leave 2025 without some type of capability for employee chatbots for productivity and in-app here. There is a tsunami of confusion on the 30 plus Microsoft offerings. Adam and I and others are right in the middle of it. So if you're interested in helping us sort through that, let us know. And if you're interested in learning, show up at noon Eastern, January 9th for LinkedIn Live webinar.
Yeah, this whole domain is so fast moving, and I think a lot of the vendors are so bad at marketing that there's huge confusion in the place. Whether you look at Microsoft's offerings, Gemini's, Anthropic's, and so forth, and you're not going to get the use, the security, and the knowledge sharing necessary unless you have a framework for thinking about this. So I think it's essential in 25 for AI leaders to understand this. All right.
John, last thing on that, I had 2 of the people I met over the holidays here. They're very conscientious employees who actually really want to use AI, Adam, but they don't want to do the shadow IT.
They want to do the right thing. Yeah,
they really want to do the right thing, and it's just killing me. And these are high talent people here that the organization have not given that safety zone.
They'll go get a job someplace else that is using it.
Exactly. One of them was talking about that.
Awesome. On that note, we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks.
Bye.